Hello from Raleigh, North Carolina. I can now say the system works and it has served us well for 2 months in all kinds of weather all across the country. This is going to be a 10-part series. Turns out part 1 was kind of long, about 15 minutes, so I've actually cut it into 2 smaller parts. Parts 1A and 1B will be available when this comes out. Just as important as solar panels is the battery bank. And you want to make sure that your battery bank is sized appropriately for your system. So the first thing you want to keep in mind is your electricity requirements. For me, I decided that I could probably get by with about 150 amp hours or less on average per night. I have a system that has 2 290 watt solar panels for a total of 580 watts. And my battery bank is a 600 amp hour battery bank. That's four 12 volt batteries that are wired in parallel, 150 amp hours each for a total of 600. So you want your figures to be roughly equivalent. The number of watts of your panels should be about the same as the number of amp hours in your batteries. In this motorhome, there's a battery rack mounted underneath the stairs. Before I could mount the batteries onto the rack, I had to make some modifications. There was a tray welded on the rack with some vertical bolts that could be used as hold downs for the 2 batteries that came with my rig. It took careful measuring, and sometimes it's not obvious when you're taking measurements the dimensions that you're going to need. For example, how much room you're going to need when you're maneuvering things into place. Also, you need to view how the space is going to be used in all situations. I'll show you how I decided to mount these 4 batteries and why. These are the batteries I took out. They were supplied by the used RV dealer that sold us this unit. And these aren't really good for any kind of dry camping. So I had to buy some new batteries. And I went ahead and bought some deep cycle batteries, which are the only kind of batteries you really want to use with solar energy panels. So these are actually mock-ups of my new batteries. You can see there's quite a bit of difference in size, and the reason I did this is because I needed to make sure that the new batteries would go in the space where the old ones went. And that space is right here under the stairs. And I'm working under here. There was a frame that was used to hold the batteries in. It did quite well. They actually had welded on the hold downs, and you can see there I've sawed them off with a hacksaw, and then I just bent that over so it's going to be flat after I'm done. And I've drilled some holes in here, and I'm using this battery tray. I've ordered 4 of these, and so they're going to hold down my 4 batteries. And fortunately for me, there's a good amount of space in here from end to end. Plenty of space. It's not quite as wide as I would have liked, so I'm going to actually have a couple of posts that are a little hard to get to, but I do believe that the batteries will actually fit in here with a little bit of room to spare. That's all I need. So I'm going to keep drilling, and the first step is to get those hold downs in, the trays in, so I have something to strap the batteries to. So surprisingly, these racks here are about as easy to drill through as the panels. Here I have first of the battery trays just sitting there so I can test the holes that I've drilled. And I have various issues I'm dealing with. I could have put them all 4 this way, except for the fact with my cardboard cutouts I figured out that I have to turn the battery. Let me grab the cutout and I'll show you. So I can't put the battery in like this, obviously. So I have to turn the battery. See, I can move that into place okay. And then I could do the same with the other one over here. But guess what? When I get to the middle, yeah, I can't turn the battery anymore because there's going to be one on either side. So that's why I have to put the middle ones in like this. Consequently, the way I've decided to install the batteries. When I first started planning this out, I had the old batteries in and I was doing my measurements, and then when I took the batteries out and started working on it, I figured out something that I didn't notice before. This is the mechanism for the electric stair, and when the batteries were in, that stair was extended every time I got in here. But once I took the batteries out, before I took the batteries out, I retracted the stairs so they wouldn't be sticking out, and so it turns out that that actually helps me determine where this particular tray is going to go. I can't put it too far forward or else it'll interfere with that stair, so I'm going to have to move it back just a little bit. Boy, a lot of things to keep in mind when you're designing a system like this. This is proving a little more challenging than I thought at first. There's the first one of my batteries, and I've decided to put this one in first. And I actually have fitted in here, but it takes some acrobatics. I have to slide that in there and sort of spin it around. And then I'm going to have to take some kind of string and attach it to the top of that J-hook so that I can pull it through after I've got the battery in there. There, I've got my first two battery trays in place. It's time to install the first two batteries. Okay, so I've got two batteries in place, and I've got the cables already attached because those two terminals are underneath where I can't get to them, so I'm going to make sure and attach the cables before I put the batteries in. The rest of the battery terminals I'll be able to get to with the batteries in place. And I've got these hold downs tightened. I've got my third tray here ready in place, ready to put the third battery in. Thank you for watching part 2 of this video series. I never could have done this project without the information that was freely and generously made available by others. And I hope this information in this video series will be helpful to you as well. I'm sure that unless you're putting the exact same batteries in the exact same motorhome, you're going to be dealing with a different situation. However, I hope that what you're seeing in this video, the ideas you see in this video, can be helpful to you in some way. Some of you might be able to fit the battery bank in the same compartment like I did, or you might have to find a different place to put them. Originally I considered putting them in a basement compartment because I knew I would have the space, but fortunately I was able to fit them in the original battery compartment. It's important to make sure that your batteries are securely in place. And I did that by bolting down battery trays. I had so little room to spare, it was a challenge getting some of the hold downs into place, but I figure it's pretty self-explanatory, so I didn't cover that in this video. Another important thing is to make sure that you have adequate ventilation. Now for AGM batteries like I used, venting them outside is optional but recommended. Fortunately, I have a battery compartment that's open underneath to the road, so there's plenty of ventilation, which is nice. If you use flooded batteries, you have to use a vented system, either putting them outside the vehicle or using a vented battery box. I don't cover that in this video, but there are plenty of others online where you can find that information. For the tight spaces I was dealing with, planning was essential. I found out that there was only one way that I could fit the batteries in. Once I figured that out, I knew that I would be able to lower the 100-pound batteries into place, rotate them, slide them in as necessary, and then fasten them into place. I had so little clearance that I had to bend down the sides of the trays and slide the battery into place. Then I was able to bend the side of the tray back up. That worked for the two batteries on the sides. I didn't have to rotate the third battery. In fact, I couldn't if I wanted to. Just dropped it down, slid it into place, and then finally the fourth battery I just dropped straight down onto the tray. I didn't videotape that because it was quite simple. In a future video, I'll show how I wired the batteries together and connected them to everything else. But first, the next video will show what other components I needed to add to the batteries and solar panels in order to have a working system.